Well, that was quite some information that you all got from our first keynote speaker this morning, Egon von Greyers, and I'd like to thank him for what he had to say, but I hope it's waking you up to the fact that there's a lot of debt in the world and where gold sits. And right now, you're going to hear from our first ASX-listed mining company, Kalamazoo Resources, who have got projects both in Western Australia and the Pilbara, as well as Victoria. So please give a warm virtual welcome to Luke Reinehr, CEO and Chairman of Kalamazoo Resources. Welcome, Luke. Great to see you, and I'm really looking forward to this presentation.
Thanks very much, Kerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual gold conference. I'd like to give you an update, if I could, in regard to Kalamazoo and our activities in WA and Victoria recently. Here's our forward-looking statements, which we're required to do under law. You can see some ASX announcements that we've also referred to here. I'd like to talk now about the Kalamazoo story. We're very unique, I believe, in that we have major projects in both Victoria and the Pilbara. And I don't think there's another gold junior out there that has this. We're well represented in Victoria, which has been our main focus for the last couple of years. I'll talk about that shortly. We've got some terrific projects there. In addition, of course, we've been in the Pilbara for quite a while. And as announced 6 weeks ago, we've just made a major acquisition of a very large gold project from Northern Star. And we think that's quite transformational. And this all fits into our strategy, which is to acquire and discover gold projects that create real tangible shareholder value. If I could, I'd now like to talk about just a corporate overview. Kalamazoo was listed about 3 years ago, but our history goes back 10 years ago. We were a private gold explorer in the Pilbara, and started by my brother Matt and myself as a gold explorer and actually a small producer as well, but primarily focused in the Pilbara. And that's represented in our shareholding with adjoin, which is about 32%. A couple of other major shareholders have joined recently, being the well-known gold investor, Canadian billionaire eric-sprott, and also novo-resources. And a couple of small nominee companies have also joined our register shortly, mainly out of North America. Very tight share capital structure, about 130 million shares on issue, about 42 million options as well. Most of those options are in the money, so it means that we've got a continual capital inflow to our business, which is funding us nicely. Got about $12 million cash and receivables in the bank, and our current market cap of about just under $100 million. We were only listed 3 years ago with a market cap then of about 16 million. So with 100 million now, we've stepped up very nicely over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think too, as people appreciate the value of the Ashburton acquisition, that our market cap will continue to increase as well. If I can, I'd like to talk about, firstly, our Ashburton Gold acquisition. It's a major project that we've acquired, and we've bought it on very good terms. Here's a map of the Pilbara, which I think probably everyone is well aware of. It really got its, I guess, its impetus over the last couple of years with Novo and the conglomerate story. But that's now changed in the last 2 or 3 years. Just recently, a couple of weeks ago, Novo bought the Millennium Gold Project. And there are 2 other gold projects currently being developed, being the Karlawinda project to the southeast, which is about 2.5 million ounces, and also the Warrawoona project, which is about 1.5 million ounces. And then, of course, De Grey has had a major discovery in the last 6 months at the Hemi discovery, just out of Port Hedland. That looks like it's going to be a tier 1 operation, probably 5 million ounces or more. And then you can see our Ashburton project to the south on this map. It's a major project near the iron ore towns of Tom Price and Paraburdoo. But what I'd like to draw your attention to is Northern Star's Paulson's Gold Project on the western side, you can see on this map. And going back 10 years ago when we were exploring as a junior, this was Northern Star's only gold project, being the Paulson's Gold Mine, and it produced about 80 to 100,000 ounces of gold per year. Around about that time in 2010, Northern Star went then and acquired the Ashburton Gold Project from a company called Seeper, who'd already produced about 300,000 ounces of gold from here. Northern Star acquired this project, and over the next 18 months, in a very aggressive exploration and drilling program, increased that resource to 1.65 million ounces at about 2.5 grams, which is quite a high grade for the Pilbara. And in the middle of 2013, Northern Star was about to push the button and make that its second standalone project or mine. And it was going to build a 100,000 ounce CIL plant with a stage 2 sulfide plant. And was its intentions around about that time. And that was at a gold price of about $1,600 Aussie. However, the gold price crashed a couple of months later down to about $1,300. So what happened was that Northern Star put this project on hold, and it's pretty much sat on the shelf ever since then. However, that fall in gold price in 2013 was of great benefit to Northern Star because it then went and acquired a number of tier one projects from companies such as Barrick, etc. And it now is, as we all know, Australia's second largest gold mining company, but very much focused on tier one. And that's what's created the opportunity for us. Having been in that area for a long time and being aware of the Ashburton project and having explored there 10 years ago and talked to Northern Star about potential exploration and infrastructure joint ventures, we're aware of the intrinsic value of the Ashburton project. So earlier on this year, we went and spoke to Northern Star to see if we could acquire the project. And to their credit, that they were very forthright in helping us develop a transaction whereby we haven't paid any capital up front. What we've said, and Northern Star bought into this very early, was let us develop a win-win scenario whereby we'll actually put our dollars directly into the ground, trying to expand the resource and also then look to develop it. And that then would give Northern Star the opportunity to have an ongoing capital input once we started mining, but then also an ongoing royalty. So to Northern Star's credit, they actually bought into this concept, and it's been a terrific transformational opportunity for us. And the reason being is that with a bit of the history and our due diligence, we believe that this project has got significant regional greenfields and brownfields exploration potential. We have an exploration target on this in the short to medium term of 2 to 3 million ounces. Fortunately for us, Paul Adams, who's one of our non-executive directors, Paul's very well known. He's, over the last 12 months, has led the Spectrum Metals team, which developed and grew out the Penny West deposit from 30,000 ounces to 300,000 ounces through an aggressive exploration and drilling campaign. Spectrum were then subsequently taken over by Ramelius in May. So Paul is now leading our exploration team at the Ashburton, and part of his remit over the last couple of months has been to actually put on some key people. And that includes Matt Rolfe, who's the senior geologist from Northern Star, who's been responsible for this project for the last 3-4 years, but also Dr. Margie Hawke, who's widely acknowledged as being one of the co-discoverers of the DeGrussa copper gold project for Sandfire. So we're very fortunate we've got a terrific team. I can just quickly talk about the project itself. It covers about 250 square kilometres. It's 4 or 5 mining leases, 2 or 3 grand of exploration leases. Past production of 350,000 ounces in oxide. And as I mentioned, Northern Star have increased the resource to 1.65 million ounces. You can see on this map, the geology flows through from the northwest to the southeast, and you can identify the 4 or 5 major pits here that are with the gold star. But also, as part of our due diligence, we believe that there are significant prospects that need further work and exploration, and that's going to be our focus, certainly on the greenfields, but also the brownfields extension potential. So, we have got very high hopes for this area. If we look at an aerial shot of this project, you can see here, this is the Mount Olympus Pit. You can literally drive into the bottom of the pit. And in effect, what's happened was that SEPA, when they were mining there back in 1998 to 2004, took away half the hill or the mountain. So that being the case, it's got a very low stripping ratio, which makes mining very easy. A couple of the other pits are there, and over the back of those hills is where Rio is actually mining the Channar iron ore deposit. Infrastructure here is very good. You've got a gas pipeline 5 kilometres away. Perhaps just looking at a couple of long sections of the deposit. This is the Mount Olympus, drilled down to about 400 or 500 metres, open in most directions. The mineralisation is controlled by the Zoe fault. And you can also see here, we've highlighted some of the gold intercepts. Some very terrific and deep intercepts in widths of 76 metres at 3 grams, 56 metres at 4.5. So that gives us a lot of confidence in regard to our future drilling campaigns, that there's some significant opportunities to expand this resource. If we look at the next long section, this is the Peak deposit, higher grade here, at 3.4 grams for about 400,000 ounces. Again, open in most directions with some very nice intercepts. So what's our exploration and development strategy? Well, fortunately for us, when we acquired this project, it's come with some terrific infrastructure. There's a exploration camp on site. It's an airstrip. It needs a little bit of work, but which we'll get back into operation. There's water, there's power, generators, core farm, chip tray farms, etc. So we're very fortunate that we can actually start, very quickly on our exploration. This project actually settles in about a week's time, and so we then get complete control of the entire data set. And as you can imagine, the work that Northern Star has completed over the last 10 years has been of first class quality. So we'll continue to review and maybe acquire some additional exploration data sets as we go along. We'll undertake some surface exploration programs, some geophysics, perhaps some geochem as well. And then our aim is to actually undertake a major drilling campaign here. We're looking to start that in Q4. We had budget for it, and we're looking to substantially increase the resource north of 2 million ounces. And if we can do that, that gives us a lot of options then in regard to future development. Interestingly, if you look at Northern Star back in 2013, their strategy was, as I mentioned, was to do a stage 1 CIL oxide plant, about 100,000 ounces a year, but then you move into a stage 2 sulfide circuit. In that period, 2013 and 12, Northern Star undertook a significant amount of metallurgy work. And this work looked at the treatment of the sulfide ore. It showed that by way of sulfide treatment, by way of a POX plant or similar, that you could get recoveries about 90% or more. In addition to that, we'll look at potentially, a high sulfide flotation concentrate to see whether we can actually perhaps utilize other different options in regard to the sulfide resource. So we think there are lots of options and lots of opportunities with the advances in technology at the moment. I think, as most people will be aware, De Grey, just to our north in the Pilbara, is also going to build an oxide sulfide plant up there. Interestingly for us, though, is that when Northern Star was doing its work on this project back in 2013, it was at a gold price of $1,600 Aussie. We're now talking $2,700. So it gives us a great opportunity to optimise not just the resource, but also the business case for this project. And that's going to take a lot of focus. So we'll probably do some work in the background, just looking at various development options. We believe that the Ashburton project adds tremendous value to our other 3 projects in the Pilbara. Perhaps the one that I'll just talk about here, though, is the Sisters project. This is a long strike from De Grey's Hemi discovery, which I think, as we all know, is going to be probably a tier 1 discovery, perhaps 5 million ounces or more. You can see this tenement here, 2983, a long strike. It's on the same structural shear as the Hemi discovery, which is the Tabba Tabba or Walia shear zone. So we think there's enormous opportunities here. Over the last couple of months, we've done a project-wide ultrafine soil sampling program, and also an airborne magnetic and radiometric survey. And what that has done is identified numerous targets for us in regard to drilling. We've had people on site recently drilling this area and having a look, and testing to see where we put our drill program for this project. And we are now engaging and looking to engage a drilling contractor to start in Q4 this year. Interestingly, we've got other companies to the north of us, such as DGO and CosIron, who are also drilling, and also De Grey has got 4 or 5 rigs running at the moment. So it's a very hot area, and we think that this project, along with our Ashburton, is a real focus for us. If I can now just turn to Victoria. This has been our focus the last 2 or 3 years. I think, as most people would be aware, the Victorian goldfields has gone through a real gold rush over this period of time, as a consequence of Fosterville's major discovery, or Kirkland Lake's major discovery at Fosterville, now considered to be the world's richest and probably most profitable underground gold mine. It's about 40 kilometres to the north of our 2 major projects, being the Castlemaine goldfield and also the South Muckleford gold project. Castlemaine's interesting because it's widely considered to be the world's richest alluvial or shallow goldfield. Almost 5 million ounces of gold was found at surface or within the top 10 or 15 metres. But then you go across just to the Maldon or the South Muckleford goldfield, 10 kilometres to the west. And that was an underground gold project. At Maldon, more than 2 million ounces at about 29 grams or 28 grams per tonne. So if you look at that, you've got Maldon, very high grade underground. You've got Fosterville to the north, very high grade underground. Yet at Castlemaine, the hard rock source, the underground source, has never been found. There's only one small underground mine there called the Wattle Gully mine, which produced about 400,000 ounces. So that's our focus. Can we find this high grade underground source that has actually come from the Castlemaine goldfield and as a consequence of all that alluvial gold? To the north of us, of course, there are some, our friends up there are drilling. They're doing some good work, but a lot of that's undercover, under the Murray Basin sands, and so that's quite difficult. So what we're doing, obviously, in our gold fields is that we're actually applying a whole range of technologies that haven't been used previously because, you know, Victoria hadn't had much exploration until Kirkland Lake had come along. Just recently, we've done a lot of work with CSIRO on a number of collaboration studies. We've done IP ground mag surveys, 3D structural modelling. Our first maiden drill campaign occurred in November this year, 4,000 metres, 14 holes. We got 14 drill holes, and we got anomalous gold in every hole, including a couple of really high-grade hits, one here at 260 metres. Albeit narrow, but it did get the attention of eric-sprott and novo-resources, who, in their view, minds, they could see the similarities with Fosterville. Eric-Sprott, of course, being the previous chairman of Kirkland Lake. So that's given us a lot of confidence and validation of our approach going forward. We don't believe that this initial program that we'd find an economic large resource there, so we're moving on to our next drill campaigns. And this is very consistent with our strategy in Victoria, and that is we're looking for a high-grade, large resource in one of these gold fields, or potentially two. And so that's where we've been doing a lot of work, again, in recent times. We've identified through IP, ground mag, soil sampling, etc., numerous drill targets, and we're putting in, as we speak, permitting and applications for these projects. We expect to be drilling there in these areas in Q4 of this year. And perhaps if I could just talk about the Victorian goldfields and the land release. I think a lot of people may be aware of this, but the Victorian government required Kirkland Lake to drop some land surrounding the Fosterville gold mine at the end of last year. And that, with some land to the north, which was under quarantine, has been put out to tender. And the tender closed in February of this year. Enormous amount of interest, not just from Australian gold and mining companies, but internationally as well. So numerous applications have been made. We've bid for blocks 3 and 4, and you know, we've put a pretty good number on it as well, we would expect, in regard to our proposed expenditure over 5 years. But that's not the only aspect of the evaluation. A key component is your proposed exploration program and also your ESG, or responsible minerals exploration. And that's areas where we're very strong. And the reason being, we're a Melbourne company. We employ local contractors. We've got operations in Castlemaine and South Muckleford. We employ local contractors, got existing native title, heritage and community engagement plans. So, you know, we're very much a local company that we believe can actually really expand and push these exploration areas forward. So we consider it's an excellent fit for our gold portfolio. However, we appreciate there's intense competition, and unfortunately, because of COVID-19, the department has now deferred the grant of those licenses until early next year. So in summary, why would you invest in Kalamazoo? Well, I think we're very unique. We've got major assets in two of the most highly rated gold provinces, not just in Australia, but in the world today. We have a transformational project in the Ashburton, 1.65 million ounces, no capital outlay. And we're looking to expand that rapidly over the next couple of years to see if we can get it between 2 to 3 million ounces, which will give us an enormous number of development options. In Victoria, we're searching for the next world-class discovery, the next Fosterville if we can. We've got some great strategic cornerstone investors who are very supportive. We're well funded. And over the next 6 or 12 months, there's going to be significant news flow with our drilling programs across 2 projects in the west and a couple of projects here in Victoria. So, Kerry, that's a summary of Kalamazoo, and I appreciate the opportunity to share it with you and your viewers or listeners.
Well, Luke, that was fantastic and much appreciated. Now, I've lost you. Here we go. Luke, lots going on, and you have clearly got a very good strategy, but there's 2 distinct areas, one being the Pilbara, one being Victoria.
Yep.
What do you focus on, Luke? Are you focusing on both? And also, has COVID impacted the ability, because you're a Melbourne-based firm, to work on your Pilbara project?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Kerry. It's something we kind of looked at earlier on this year when COVID started arising, and that is we decided at a very early stage to have 2 very distinct exploration teams. We've got our Victorian team looking after our Victorian assets. We can't travel, of course, out of Victoria. And in WA, we've got our exploration team now headed up with Paul Adams and some very senior people who are looking after the WA. So we've got 2 very distinct teams, both fully funded, and we're just as excited and confident about both those projects and their ability to deliver over the next couple of years.
Luke, there's a lot of people on here today that don't understand gold equities that well. You did put an investment case together at the end there, but I'd just like you to say just a couple of words to people that are looking at this and going, I don't understand, 3.4 grams per ton gold. What would you say to them about Kalamazoo and its potential? And I always say this to people, please do your own research. Kalamazoo has done a lot of work, especially in the last 12 months. But what would you say to those people that are looking and taking the first step?
Of course. I think you've got to look at the people to start with, Kerry.
Absolutely.
You've got to make sure you've got not only the skills, but I guess the commercial acumen as well. We've got a great team, and we've been putting that and growing that as well. I think the other key thing is to be, in key areas, Victoria and the Pilbara, two of the leading gold regions in the world today. And the other thing too is that, we've always looked at major projects and seeing if we can, build our portfolio. Because can I tell you, there's just as much work, working on a small project, there is a large one. So our view has been the leverage is greater on the larger projects, and it makes it an easier story when you're raising capital as well. People want to see that you're going to have a major project.
Luke Reinehr from Kalamazoo Resources. We'll see you later today in the Zoom room. So ladies and gentlemen, if you've got more questions, write them down and we'll get Luke to answer them at the end of today in the Zoom room. But for now, Luke Reinehr, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Gary.